Paul and Seneca Correspondence, fake letters between Apostle Paul and Roman philosopher Seneca. Hi everyone, welcome to my channel where we tell stories that are strange, scary, and sometimes sad, but always interesting. Tonight's story is about two of the most influential people in the history of their respective fields. One was a Jew who started out as a persecutor of Christians, only to become one of their most important apostles. The other was a Roman philosopher whose works had an enormous impact on Western thought. They were born 2,000 miles apart from each other and never met. So why am I telling you about them together? Because thanks to a collection of 14 letters written by one of them to the other, these two men who lived completely separate lives became pen pals. The only problem is those letters weren't actually written by them at all. Let me explain. The letters were written in the 17th century by a Spanish Dominican friar named Antonio de Guevara and published under the title De Seneca Critico. Each letter is ostensibly written by either Seneca or Paul to the other, discussing theology, philosophy, and politics. In some letters, Paul discusses his missionary travels and the spread of Christianity. In others, he defends it against accusations that it's a cult or a dangerous political movement. He even wrote one letter ostensibly from prison, which includes the line, "I have been thrown into prison, but it does not displease me to suffer these things for your instruction." In some of the letters, they debate the existence of God, with Seneca arguing against his Jewish counterpart. In others, they discuss what might be the meaning of life and whether or not free will exists. As you can probably guess, these letters aren't exactly faithful to either of their actual writings. Scholars believe that de Guevara used a number of sources for inspiration, including the Bible, Seneca's surviving letters, a book called The Republic of Letters, and a pamphlet defending Christianity that was written around the year 397. But despite the fact that they contain a lot of anachronisms, including references to places like Constantinople and the Council of Nicaea, the letters have enjoyed some popularity over the years. They were translated into French in 1645 and then into English in 1659. A French nobleman even tried to get Pope Alexander VII to declare them authentic, though thankfully he was unsuccessful. In the early 19th century, they were reprinted along with a number of other supposedly ancient Christian texts in a book called the Dialogos, which has since been recognized as a forgery. So why do I find this story interesting? Well, when I first came across this topic, I assumed that these letters were just another example of people trying to capitalize off someone else's fame. That may be true, but it got me thinking about how, even if something is fake, it can still be popular and influential. And even if it is popular and influential, it can still be fake. These letters may not have been written by Paul and Seneca, but they do contain ideas from both of their philosophies. And regardless of who wrote them, they offer an interesting look into what two very different cultures were like during two very different times. So what do you think? Would you like to receive letters from St. Paul, or would you rather hear from Seneca? Or maybe you'd prefer neither and spend your time doing something more productive, like liking this video and subscribing so you don't miss any new episodes. I know how productive you are. Anyway, I hope you have a good night and I'll see you next time.